Here alongside Jim Flanery ahead of the 24-25 season. Coach, how are we doing today?
Doing great. This season is sneaking up on us, and it doesn't feel like basketball weather, but it is.
Well, what have you seen early from your team so far?
They're highly competitive. They don't like to lose. The practice situation's been really good. I feel like they know the value of each practice. We don't practice very long because of how old we are, and I'm worried about injuries, but also you don't need as many practice repetitions because, one, we have a smaller roster. We only have 11, and then we have so much experience that I try to get them in. We go an hour and a half, and then we're finished. But they're highly competitive, and then I've seen really good leadership within. I mean, I think even within the practice, we give them opportunities to lead, and they do a great job of doing that, of taking a younger, a senior taking a younger player and saying, hey, here's what you can do here. Here's what you need to be thinking about. And so that's big to me, is just seeing that kind of leadership and just how competitive they are. If we ever end a drill and a tie, they're mad at me because I won't let them finish. But I kind of like that because it keeps them mad.
Well, we know one void that will have to be filled this season will be Emma Ronsick, of course. How do you find that piece to put in there to fix where Emma's production would have came from? I mean, is it by committee? Is it a person? How do you look at that?
Yeah, it's we recruited a fifth-year senior from Central Missouri, Brooke Littrell, who I think has some of the same offensive tools that Emma has. I mean, I'm not telling you she's Emma, but I think she can score the ball. She's a good face-up player. She's 6'1" and has played 4 years of college basketball. She hasn't played at this level. The defensive piece will be an adjustment, but she can give us some pop, I think, that Emma gave us. But then beyond that, it's just everybody else has to be just a little bit more efficient, a little bit more confident. And I've seen that. I mean, I think the foreign tour really helped us there in terms of just getting us extra practice. And, but I think, I think we'll miss Emma in some ways that maybe the average fan doesn't notice, She was so good against the press, and, the average fan maybe doesn't see that because they aren't paying attention, or they think it was the guard's responsibility at the end of a game. And but I think there's a few subtle areas where we'll maybe miss her more than most people will think. But we've got to plug people in and have them get better at some situational things that Emma was really good at too.
Yeah, you mentioned the transfers, of course, with Brooke that you've talked on, and then Sydney as well. Why make the move to go to that D2 level to pick up some transfers?
Well, one, experience level. I mean, Sydney was a 4-year starter at Fort Hays, which is a really good Division II program. So she knows college basketball. She's older. She's a really smart player. And Brooke, kind of the same thing. I mean, Brooke scored almost 2,000 points in college, and I don't care if it's D2. That's still pretty darn good. So. And we took a shot at some other players, but I'm really comfortable with the two we got because I feel like they're here for the right reasons. They wanted to jump up and try this level, and they've been really competitive in practice, and they've made us a better basketball team.
Yeah, how about the group of freshmen too? What have you seen early from them?
Yeah, really coachable. Both Allison Heathcock from Edmond, Oklahoma, and Liz Gentry from Denver. Those two kids are really coachable. They're learners, and they have the talent level to play at this level. Now, how much they get to play as freshmen will be dependent on, some situational things, whether we can stay healthy or not. But they're both going to be good players. I mean, Liz is the closest player I've ever had to dunking. So she's physically, she's right there physically with some of the better players we've had in the post position. And then Allison's a 6'1" long wing player who I think is just a really good all-around player. She's got good versatility, both offensively and defensively.
Yeah, what has impressed you most with this group and its maturity too? Because I know there's an adage of get old, stay old. How helpful is that in practice?
Yeah. Well, I think it's really helpful. We've talked as a staff that what we do in practice this year will look totally different from what we do next year, because we don't have to stop and teach as much. Like I said, we can get through practice in an hour and a half because we can identify something, speak to it for 3 seconds, and they know what we're talking about. Whereas next year, when we're younger, I'm gonna have to blow the whistle. We're gonna have to say, okay, here's what you need to do, and here's why you need to do it. And by the way, whereas this year, corrections are quick for the most part, and we bring our freshmen in and newcomers in and have them watch a little extra film and maybe go through some things. But practices are quicker. There's less stop and go, and just more player-driven leadership. Whereas a normal team, you're not going to have quite that much of that.
Right, and you've seen it breed consistency and success at this program off another NCAA tournament and almost beating UCLA to go even further. How do you feel like you've set that tone, or has it been the players that set that tone of consistency and that standard?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to give 95% of the credit to our players. I think they just have a great approach. They're committed to the game. They're committed to each other, and that's a big thing. And then my assistant coaches do a really good job of kind of giving them avenues to improve and helping them. They're in the gym with them, and but yeah, I mean, the number of times where I will blow the whistle and say, okay, Blues meet with each other, Whites meet with each other, and we don't have any coaching during that. We might go 30 to 45 seconds where all the coaching is being done by the players, and part of that's because I think you need to do some of that even with a younger team, but a lot of it's just because I trust them so much.
When you think about this season, where do you feel like this team's potential is?
Well, I think the goal is to be, a team that competes to host an NCAA tournament game. There's been a gap between us and UConn, and I feel like our goal should be to close that gap. And I mean, I'd like to beat them, but whatever the case, I want our players to go into a game like that and think and know that we can win. When we play UCLA, when we got Nebraska and Kansas State, we got a really tough schedule. So we're going to have opportunities for great wins. We're going to have opportunities to build a great resume. But I think sometimes we just say, well, it's all about what you do in the NCAA tournament. And, the fact is we had, to your point, we were within one possession of beating UCLA. So you can't get wrapped up in that. We had a great season, and the goal is to just be a little bit better than that, and I think we can be.
Yeah, when you look across the Big East, where would you say the state of the Big East is? I mean, Paige Becker's final season, you saw the departure of Lucy Olson going over to Iowa, but how do you feel like that league is as a whole?
Yeah, I think, UConn's the clear-cut favorite, and, based on our experience, we should be right there behind them. But, yeah, unfortunately, our league is losing too many good players to transfer, and I think we still have good coaches, we have a good league, but I do worry that long-term that we're just vulnerable to some of the dynamics in college athletics these days, and, because we don't have necessarily the football money and the television money that some other schools do. But I think we are a basketball league. I think we're committed on the men's and women's side, and so this year, it's hard to know necessarily what the middle's going to look like because of all the movement, and that may be the case. But I know we have good coaches, and I know we have administrations that are committed across the league. Well,
one exciting announcement that came out just recently, you guys will be playing UConn at the CHI Health Center. How did that all come together? How'd they convince you?
Well, I'm going to tell you, it wasn't that hard. We had actually talked about it the previous couple of years. We'd said, well, at some point we need to decide that we're going to play them down there. And, honestly, as poorly as we've played at home the last 2 years, it made the decision really easy for me. Because coaches, I'm not overly superstitious, but I'm superstitious enough that I said we can't play any worse, really, than we have the last 2 years. So, but I think it's a great opportunity. Paige Beckers is a senior, so I know people will come out and watch. And the Big East called us early and said, hey, we're going to put it in a prime window. It's going to be on Fox. We're going to make it a big deal. So I think, from that standpoint, it's a great opportunity to showcase the sport, our program, Omaha, and our league.
Well, absolutely. We've seen so much growth of women's sports, and especially basketball. Is that so inspiring to you to see that across the board?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, when you look at just really probably the last 18 months to 2 years in women's sports, and like you said, particularly in women's basketball, There's a lot of momentum. I think we got to capitalize it. That's another reason I think to play at CHI is what's possible. What can we get? How many thousand can we get in there? And and we have a team that's, I think, capable of doing that. But I think the interest in our sport has grown. I think the money and the revenues that are going to come back into our sport is going to help. And just I think there's a general greater appreciation across the board. And but you don't want to take that for granted. You want to make sure that you capitalize at this time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Coach, we can't wait for it, and we'll see this season.
All right, thanks, Hannah. I thought you were reaching your hand out. I was like, okay, cool. Thanks, Hannah.
Thank you.